welcome or welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you all how you could be in the process of going to SLP grad school as an out of major applicant. I know when I was in your position, I definitely had so many questions that I didn't necessarily get the answer to right away, which is why I decided that it was best that I make a video, hopefully so that someone out there could get information that you may or may not know right now in your position. Before I begin, I just want to make a quick disclaimer though. I am in no way, shape, or form an expert in this topic. This is just all the research that I have done in the past couple of months, as well as asking current SLP students about things that they have learned on the way. And personally, being an out of major applicant, there were definitely things that I had to distinguish between their position and my position. But like I said, since I am not an expert, I highly recommend to check asha.edfind. I'm going to go ahead and put the name up on the screen right now. But basically, if you go ahead and check them out, you're definitely going to find so much valuable information on there, especially because they are the association that focuses on speech and hearing. So I would highly suggest to check them out if you have different questions or things that I didn't necessarily mention that you would like to go ahead and get to know. And with that said, this video is going to be aimed for students who are in a different major, who are interested in applying to speech language pathology. So let's say, for example, you are a psych major, or you are a child education major, or an English major, and you want to make that switch to becoming a speech language pathologist, then this video is definitely for you. But if you are already a student who is a CSD student, then feel free to keep watching so that you can hopefully share this wisdom to any other students or friends who you may have who are in the similar boat. So yeah, I just wanted to make that quick disclaimer. And I'm going to be putting the timestamps of everything in the description down below in case you want to watch a particular part of the video. Okay, so a little bit about myself in case you are new. My name is Nayeli Dominguez, and I graduated last year with a bachelor's in psychology and a minor in Spanish studies. And I didn't necessarily make the change to become a speech language pathologist until mid-August. So the deadline to apply for grad schools and to apply for prereq programs had definitely passed, and after that I realized that I had to wait a semester before I could actually begin, which is why I'm barely starting my prerequisite courses this spring 2021. And that's a little bit about myself. My goal is to apply to grad school fall 2022, but I just want to give that introduction in case any of you are new and are just stumbling upon my channel. Alright, so we're just gonna go ahead and get started. So I have my notes written down just so that I didn't forget anything. So the first part is if you are either a freshman or a sophomore in college. Let's say for whatever reason you come across speech language pathology and you begin to question what is this major about, or what exactly does this field entail? Then my biggest tip for you would be to take an Intro to Communication Sciences and Disorders course, because you'll be able to get a wide scoop of what exactly the field entails, what the major entails, and that way you'll be able to make a better decision if whether or not you want to pursue this career. And that way, if let's say for whatever reason you didn't really like what you saw, you only took 3 units rather than fully declaring the major and then realizing later on that that's not what you wanted to do. So I highly suggest to take a class and get your feet in the water and see what exactly the major has to offer. The second biggest tip that I have is once you decide that that's something that you would be interested in applying to, then my biggest suggestion then would be to meet with an academic advisor of the program, or to talk to the department chair and see what else you would need to do so that you can declare the major. That way you could begin in the process of dropping the major that you initially had to then declaring the major of Communication Sciences and Disorders. So that would be a big tip. That way you can begin to create your plan of what your next 4 years will look like, or 3 years if you are a sophomore. The next biggest tip I think would be to talk to upperclassmen. The reason being is because they have already gone through all the classes, they have already taken a lot of the exams, and they have gone through the professors that offered the classes, and they definitely have an inside scoop of the major itself. They can pass down study tips, they can pass down things that have helped them, and being able to reach to an upperclassman can definitely ensure that you'll not only build a connection, but you'll hopefully build a friendship, and they'll definitely be able to help you if you stumble across an issue. My next biggest tip would be to look up YouTube videos about current grad students or current undergrad students who are in the process to become speech language pathologists and ask them questions about the field. That way you can get a better idea if you want to declare the degree or if you want to learn more about it. That's something that I definitely did when I was in the process of figuring out if this field was right for me. But for me, at least, since there weren't that many YouTube videos, I didn't really have specific information related to my specific situation. But at least for you, since you're still a freshman or a sophomore, and because you're still looking to see if this field is right for you, then being able to go to YouTube videos can definitely be a great way for you to help solidify your decision. And something to keep in mind though is sometimes your university doesn't necessarily offer the degree. For example, at my university, communication sciences and disorders was not a thing. I think it was because it was a small liberal arts college. So one of the biggest tips would be to try your best and see if maybe you could transfer. The reason being is because if you transfer, you're more likely to finish all the prerequisite courses in order to go to grad school right after, rather than spending additional time completing the prerequisite courses and then going to grad school. There's nothing wrong with that, but let's say for whatever reason you already want to be in the field, then being able to transfer ensures that you'll graduate with that degree while also completing the prerequisite courses. Another thing to consider too is, are you willing to change majors? Let's say for whatever reason you're a child education major and you say to yourself, I actually do want to consider keeping that major. Then I highly would suggest to keep it and end up double majoring. So a major in CSD and a major in child education. But that may mean that you may be in school for a longer time, which is totally okay. But those are things to consider. Or if you want, you can always make your child education major a minor so that you could focus on completing the prerequisite courses for CSD. And then, like I said, let's say you decide to declare your major as a freshman because you realize that you actually want to pursue speech language pathology. That would essentially be beneficial to you because you would spend 4 years in undergrad, and then let's say you decide to go right away to grad school, then that would be another 2 years, so 6 years total, and then a clinical fellowship year right after, which is only 9 months. So it would be 6 years and 9 months before you can officially become a speech language pathologist, versus a student like myself who ended up finding speech language pathology a few years after. So now I spent 4 years of undergrad in another field and then 2 years of completing prerequisite courses and then another 2 years for grad school. So that's a total of 8 years already. And then my clinical fellowship, which in this case would be 9 months as well. So 8 years and 9 months compared to 6 years and 9 months is definitely beneficial because then that means you would already be a practicing speech language pathologist by the time that I am starting to become one. And that basically concludes the first part for freshmen and sophomores. Alright, so the next part is for juniors and seniors who happen to stumble upon speech language pathology. So there are definitely a few options that you may have that I happen to come across. The first would be to finish your degree. I know that you have already declared a major and you already have taken so many classes, which is why I'm suggesting that you would go ahead and finish your degree. So for example, I know a girl who is a psych major. She's a junior, I believe, and she's going to continue finishing her degree and then she's going to apply to grad school right after. But she has in mind to apply to a college. I'll explain it more in just a second. But she has in mind to apply to a specific program that will accept her with just her psych degree. So you never know what you'll come across, which is why I'm saying if you want, you can go ahead and keep that degree. The next would be to maybe instead make communication sciences and disorders a minor. That way you can go ahead and complete some of the prerequisite courses, maybe not all of them, but some of the most important ones. I know, for example, there's some grad programs, depending on which one you choose, where they require a set number of prerequisite courses completed, and then another school requires another set, which is why maybe completing the most basic prerequisite courses can ensure that you could possibly go to grad school right away. But that's not really guaranteed. It's just an option so that you can go ahead and complete some of the prerequisite courses, so that you could go ahead and finish them faster, either if you decide to go right after or if you still have to complete additional prerequisite courses. Alright, so the next biggest tip I think could be most beneficial to you as a junior and a senior would be to boost up your application. The way you can do this is to possibly join a research lab at your school that kind of goes along the field of speech language pathology or CSD, and see if you could get your feet in the water by doing research prior to your grad school experience. I know grad schools thrive on research, which is why having that research would be very beneficial to you. Another tip would be to do internships, to shadow, or to even possibly volunteer in a specific area that you are very interested in for speech language pathology. I could definitely make a video on where you could work as a speech language pathologist, so leave a comment down below so that I can go ahead and provide you guys examples of where you could possibly work. But let's say you're interested in working in the medical setting. So I know it's very hard to get an internship at a medical setting, but you can try your best to tailor your internship, your shadowing positions in something that relates to the medical speech language pathology field. That way you can help boost up your application if that's where you're interested in going to. The last thing I think that is very beneficial to you is to try your best to get good GRE scores. I know right now, because of the current circumstances being in a pandemic, a lot of schools postpone the GRE and waive them for just a certain period. I don't know if that's going to be the case for future years, because it was just, I think, temporarily for this specific moment. But let's say for whatever reason they bring the GRE back, then being able to give yourself time to prepare for the test would ensure that you could take it as an undergrad student, because you would be able to spend more time studying for the exam rather than waiting last minute to take it. So I highly suggest to study for the exam. I know how horrible the test is, to be honest. Like, I am not a good test taker at all. I strongly believe that a score should not define one's ability to succeed in higher education, but unfortunately that is not the case for certain grad programs. I know, for example, students who have said that they don't really do well but they still manage to get into grad school. But ensuring that you can get a good score could be beneficial to you as an out-of-major applicant. But yeah, that concludes part 2 for this video. Alright, so the next part is for anyone who is on the cusp of graduating. So you're a senior currently as another related field, or you have already graduated and now happen to stumble upon speech language pathology and you don't know what to do. So some of the biggest options, I think, in my opinion, are to pursue a post-bac program or to complete a second bachelor's degree. So a post-bac program it's not like you get a second bachelor's, but it's a certificate that ensures that you completed all the required courses and can allow for you to get into grad programs. However, post-bacs tend to have pros and cons. Depending on the post-bac that you choose, some schools may or may not require specific prerequisite courses versus another school. So let's say, for example, one university says, I want you to have this one, and this one, and your post-bac program offers all of those, and you're like, great, all right, I'm going to do that post-bac program. But let's say for whatever reason it says that you have to have different classes to the ones that you thought you had, then that would be an issue, because then you may or may not have the possibility of being accepted because they require a certain number of prerequisite courses and your program offered different ones which fit more another one. So that's something that I would highly recommend to do, is to research your post-bac program and research the grad programs that you're interested in applying to. That way you can make a better decision when it comes to deciding which post-bac program you are interested in applying to. The second is second bachelor's degree. So I know there's a couple of programs here and there. I don't know them at the top of my head, but I know, for example, Utah State has a great program. I've heard a lot of great things about it. So far, I have been liking it a lot, where you complete the prerequisite courses, mostly all of the prerequisite courses that typical undergraduate students complete, and then you get a bachelor's once you're done with the program. So I think that's a better option in my opinion, because that way you have more of a variety of grad schools to choose from, rather than just being limited to a couple because you didn't take some of their prerequisite courses. So that's something that I would suggest. However, let's say for whatever reason you are interested in applying and just going straight into grad school, by all means, that is totally okay, because there are definitely some grad programs that accept students who have different backgrounds. And I think you're more likely to get accepted because you come from a different field. And some programs really thrive on that, where they like to get students from other fields other than CSD to see what else they could bring to the program. So that's a good pro to you, in my opinion. I know, for example, I happen to stumble upon that right now that I'm taking a few courses. For one of my assignments, I was required to explain why a child tends to communicate more in a certain area. And I happen to use my psych degree as a way to implement the environment of the child as a whole, rather than just focusing on their communication skills. And I think that's a good thing, because when I apply to a grad program, I'll be able to explain that in my application, how I'm able to see people not only as like for who they are, but also incorporate that communication aspect, which is speech language pathology. So that's definitely a good advantage to you. And like I said, there are definitely programs that do accept students right after undergrad in another field, but you may come across being very limited in terms of your options. I know, for example, Southern California is very competitive to get into a SLP grad school, so you have to have the prerequisite courses completed, versus somewhere else in the US. You may have a higher chance of getting in. You just have to be okay with traveling somewhere else, which I wasn't necessarily, and I don't think I still am. I plan on living in California for the rest of my life, and I plan to attend school around here, which is why it's important that I focus on taking prerequisite courses that will ensure that I have a better chance of getting into a grad program. So yeah, that's something that you can consider as well. And then finally, I've touched upon this in one of my videos, but I highly suggest, if you want to take some time off from school, I know how being able to take some time away from school is super rewarding, because you get to not only come back strong and ready to conquer the next phase of your life, but at the same time, it gives you a break from everything that you just learned. So let's say you graduated with a psych degree, and you had a whole bunch of research courses, and you feel like you're not ready to start just yet, then by all means take some time off, because you'll not only, like I said, rejuvenate, but you'll definitely get a better idea of where you want to go, what schools you plan on going to, what post-bac programs or second bachelor's degree, or if you plan on going to grad school right after, then by all means, feel free to do what you want to do. I know, for example, in my second bachelor's program, there are a lot of older adults who already have children, but I know that a lot of them said that they took some time off, and it was very rewarding because they were able to start a family, and then they came back to school a few years later to pursue that second bachelor's to become a speech language pathologist. But it's really up to you in terms of how you would like to become a speech language pathologist. But those are just some of the things that I came across when doing my research. Alright guys, so that is it for today's video. I really hope that this video is helpful to all of you, or whoever is in the process of becoming a speech language pathology as an added major applicant. I am here to try my best to help all of you. I know how tedious and difficult this process was for me, so I am sure that it's very difficult for you. But if you have any questions, like I said, feel free to leave them down in the description below. I will do my best to reach out to all of you. On another note, I am so close to 100 subscribers. As I'm filming this right now, I currently have 93, and I cannot thank you enough for the support. I didn't think I was going to make it to 100 this quickly. I thought it was still going to take some time, but I am so glad that my channel is growing. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I am more than happy to have you on board. And yeah, I cannot thank you enough for the new subscribers who have joined my channel. So with all that said, I will see you all next time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye guys, take care.
It's hard to tell on the surface, but I think you know I'm the one. Just pray